Section 5 of the ComSOP completely deals with the interior of the building. It's our responsibility as inspectors to make sure that the interior is safe and that all pathways are accessible for individuals using the building. 5.1 states that carpet has to be low pile and tightly woven. For example, the carpet in the building right now and the rug that's here in front of the accessibility door is exactly that. It is tightly woven and it is low pile. Imagine if the carpet were maybe a shag rug or it was something that was very loose fill. It would be very difficult for somebody with accessibility issues, maybe with a walker or some sort of issue with their feet or even a wheelchair in some instances. So it's important as we evaluate the interior of the building, if it has carpet, that it meets those standards from the ComSOP. 5.2 states that if anyone inside the building might be using a cane, there cannot be any detectable hindrances in the way. That could be anything from 27 inches up off of the ground. For example, if there's boxes or a plant or a sign or whatever that might look like, or anything within 80 inches off the ground for headroom. If there's a light or decorations hanging there. As we move through the interior of the building, we need to pay attention to these things to ensure that there is a safe passway of travel. 5.3 states that inside the walkway, or if we consider maybe the hazard zone, items cannot stick off the wall or in the pathway, nonetheless, within 4 inches. So for example, here on this window casing, if I do this measurement, this is actually less than 1 inch of protrusion, so we know this is going to be okay. But take, for example, if this might be a doctor's office and this was an accessible window where they could speak to a nurse. If this were a section sticking out where maybe they could fill paperwork out, that could not come off the wall more than 4 inches. And it doesn't necessarily have to be adhered to the wall. It could also be a plant or a bookshelf or anything of that nature. We always want to make sure we're paying attention to the accessible pathways and nothing within 4 inches is protruding into that lane. 5.4 states that when we have a corridor similar to this hallway, it cannot be decreased less than 36 inches of width for the travel space. Now, if we refer back to the previous 5.3 with the 4-inch protrusion, for example, we have this bookshelf here. Now, realistically, this bookshelf sticks out at least 14 inches, so we know technically it's more than 4. But when we want to measure the corridor, we want to measure from the protrusion to the other end of it. For example, here, this wall from the bookshelf over is 69 inches, so it almost more than doubles what we have for the clearance minimum. So technically this corridor is what we are looking for in the ComSOP. 5.5 states that inside of these 36-inch corridors, at 200-foot intervals, there needs to be a space for wheelchairs to pass one another successfully. Additionally, if we were to remove the 200-foot rule, if we had intersecting corridors, that could also be utilized as an interval for wheelchairs to be able to pass with an adequate amount of space. 5.6 states that wheelchair maneuverability should be available on either side of a door. So it's important as you go through the building, if it's an accessible pathway, open all the doors and measure to ensure that there's enough space for a wheelchair to maneuver through. To summarize Section 5 interior, let's go over these important points. 1, pay attention to the carpet. It has to be low pile and tightly woven. When we look at corridors, they need to be at least 36 inches wide. Now, if we're looking at a protrusion, which a protrusion is anything 4 inches or more off of the wall or in the walkway, we can measure from the protrusion to the other side of the corridor. As long as we have 36 inches, that right there is an accessible route. In a hallway, we have to ensure that there are proper intervals for those wheelchairs to be able to pass one another. And if I'm opening a door, I need to make sure that there's enough space on either side of that door for maneuverability of the wheelchair. And lastly, pay attention to things on the ground and things hanging from the ceiling. Anything within 27 inches off the floor is going to be an obstruction on the ground, and from the ground up to 80 inches, anything hanging could be an obstruction into our face or on our head. Pay attention to those things as you walk around and maneuver in the interior so that you can put these on your accessibility report.